Welcome to Occult Mysticism channel, your portal to the hidden realms of esoteric knowledge. In today's video, we dive into the secret teachings of all ages by Manly P. Hall, a monumental work exploring the profound mysteries of ancient wisdom. Published in 1928, this encyclopedic masterpiece uncovers the esoteric traditions of alchemy, Kabbalah, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, and more, weaving together the timeless truths of occult and mystical philosophies. Join us as we summarize its key insights, illuminating the hermetic principles and arcane teachings that continue to inspire seekers worldwide. In Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, the author embarks on an encyclopedic journey through the hidden wisdom and esoteric philosophies that have shaped human civilization. The book serves as an interpretation of the secret doctrines concealed within the rituals, allegories, and mysteries of various ages, encompassing Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. Hall dedicates his work to the rational soul of the world, aiming to present a tome worthy of the seers and sages whose thoughts form its essence. He emphasizes that dogmatic pronouncements about ancient tenets are foolhardy and that traditionalism plagues modern philosophy. Instead, he endeavors to convey the spirit of the original authors, introducing readers to a hypothesis of living beyond materialistic theology, philosophy, or science. The extensive research for this volume began in 1921, with the writing commencing in 1926 and continuing for over 2 years. Hall acknowledges the significant contributions of various libraries and translators who assisted in gathering and preparing the diverse reference material, including German, Latin, Italian, French, and Hebrew texts. He makes no claim of infallibility or originality, recognizing that his work is a synthesis of ancient fragmented writings. The scope of philosophy and ancient schools. Philosophy, as defined by Hall, is the science of estimating values, establishing the relationship between manifested things and their invisible ultimate cause. He cites various definitions from prominent thinkers like Cicero, Hobbes, and Kant, highlighting the 6 common classifications of philosophy, metaphysics, logic, ethics, psychology, epistemology, and aesthetics. Hall laments the 20th century's philosophical landscape, describing it as a ponderous and complicated structure of arbitrary and irreconcilable notions, marred by a drift towards materialism. He echoes Sir Francis Bacon's sentiment that a little philosophy inclineth man's mind to atheism, but depth in philosophy bringeth men's minds about to religion. The narrative then delves into a historical overview of significant philosophical schools, beginning with the Greek tradition. The Ionic school, founded by Thales, conceived water as the primal element, while Anaximander believed in an indefinable infinity and Anaximenes asserted air as the first element. Anaxagoras posited an infinite self-moving mind as the cause of all things, and Archelaus held a twofold principle of mind and air. Heraclitus, associated with the Ionic school, emphasized fire as the primary element and the concept of eternal flux. The Italic or Pythagorean school, led by Pythagoras, regarded mathematics as the most sacred science and stressed the philosophical life as a prerequisite for wisdom. Pythagoras is credited with establishing a community for mutual assistance in higher sciences and introducing retrospection. This school also originated the theory of celestial harmonics, or the music of the spheres. The Eleatic sect, founded by Xenophanes, championed God as a one and incorporeal, in substance and figure round, being, with Parmenides asserting the earth's roundness and Zeno of Elea rejecting the theory of motion. Democritus expanded on the atomic theory, believing atoms and vacuum to be infinite principles of all things, with the soul itself being atomic in structure. The Socratic sect, founded by Socrates, focused on man as the sole subject of philosophy. Socrates believed the soul existed before the body, endowed with all knowledge, which could be reawakened through discourse. He conceived of 3 principles: God, matter, and ideas. The Elean sect, founded by Phaedo of Elis, and the Megarian sect, established by Euclid of Megara, are also touched upon, with their respective doctrines of limited knowledge and the absolute unity of goodness. The Cynics, founded by Antisthenes, advocated extreme individualism and renunciation of worldly possessions, epitomized by Diogenes of Sinopes, who lived in a tub. In contrast, the Cyrenaic sect, founded by Aristippus, promoted hedonism, viewing pleasure as the chief purpose of life. Plato's academic school, divided into three parts, regarded philosophy as the greatest good imparted by divinity. Plato's philosophy posited three orders of being: that which moves unmoved, that which is self-moved, and that which is moved, emphasizing learning as reminiscence. Aristotle, Plato's most distinguished disciple, considered philosophy twofold: practical and theoretical. He defined God as the first mover and wisdom as the science of first causes. Skepticism, championed by Pyrrho of Elis, questioned the comprehensibility of truth, while Stoicism, founded by Zeno, embraced pantheism and voluntary resignation to natural law. Epicurus, founder of the Epicurean sect, also posited pleasure as the most desirable state, but emphasized a dignified state achieved through renunciation of pain-inducing inconstancies. Eclecticism, drawing from various schools, emerged as thinkers doubted the possibility of ultimate truth. The Neo-Pythagorean school in Alexandria, with figures like Apollonius of Tyana, linked pagan philosophies with Neoplatonism, emphasizing number mysteries. Neoplatonism, beginning with Plotinus, was a supreme effort to preserve paganism's secret doctrine, focusing on higher metaphysics and the mystical truths concealed within symbols. Patristic philosophy, encompassing early Christian church fathers, emphasized man's supremacy in the universe, culminating in Augustinianism or Christian Platonism. Gnosticism and Manichaeism are also briefly discussed for their metaphysical interpretations of Christianity. Scholasticism, rising in the 9th century, sought to reconcile philosophy with theology, with Albertus Magnus and St. Thomas Aquinas as prominent figures. Post-Reformation philosophy, departing from scholasticism, saw diverse movements like humanism, rationalism, empiricism, idealism, and realism. Baruch de Spinoza conceived God as a self-existent substance with attributes of extension and thought. German philosophy saw figures like Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz, who developed the theory of monads, and Immanuel Kant, whose critical philosophy rescued mind from matter. Fichte projected Kant's ideas, while von Schelling introduced the doctrine of identity. Hegel elevated logic as a quality of the absolute itself, viewing God as an unfolding process. Schopenhauer's philosophy centered on the will, aiming for its control by the mind. Nietzsche, in turn, emphasized the will to power and the concept of the Superman. René Descartes spearheaded the French school, founding metaphysical philosophy on internal observation and the criteria of clarity and distinctness for truth. Auguste Comte's positive philosophy proposed three stages of intellectual development, culminating in positivism as the expression of the adult intellect. Henri Bergson, an intuitionalist, presented a theory of mystic anti-intellectualism based on creative evolution, viewing God as life struggling against matter. English philosophy saw John Locke asserting that everything passing through the mind is a legitimate object of mental philosophy, with David Hume as his enthusiastic disciple. Bishop George Berkeley, an idealist, argued against the existence of material objects, claiming that ideas are the real objects of knowledge. Associationalism, from Hartley and Hume, proposed the association of ideas as the fundamental principle of psychology, while utilitarianism, championed by Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, declared the greatest good to be that which is most useful to the greatest number. Charles Robert Darwin's Darwinism is noted for its focus on natural selection and physical evolution, and the period also saw the rise of agnosticism and neo-Hegelianism. Herbert Spencer's Spencerianism described evolution as an increasing complexity towards equilibrium. Italian philosophy featured Giordano Bruno, who asserted the sun as a star and stars as suns, leading to his martyrdom. Viquism held that God controls the world through natural law, and ontologism posited God as the only being and origin of all knowledge. Benedetto Croce, a Hegelian idealist, considered ideas as the only reality. American philosophy developed transcendentalism, exemplified by Ralph Waldo Emerson, emphasizing the transcendental over the physical, and pragmatism, popularized by William James, which defined meaning and nature by consequences. The ancient mysteries and secret societies, all then delves into the ancient mysteries, asserting that philosophy originated from these religious secret societies. These institutions, which bound initiates to secrecy, were the source of doctrines later propagated by philosophers, their true origin often obscured. Symbolism, being the language of the mysteries, allowed for the revelation and concealment of truths, making it a powerful means of preserving transcendental knowledge across changing nations and empires. The Druidic mysteries of Britain and Gaul are explored, with the Druids described as priests and physicians, possessing a deep understanding of nature and her laws. Their secret teachings, communicated orally, closely resembled the Bacchic and Eleusinian mysteries of Greece and the Egyptian rites of Isis and Osiris. The Druidic order was divided into Ovate, Bard, and Druid degrees, with the Archdruid as the spiritual head. Their beliefs included transmigration and reincarnation, and their ceremonies often took place at solstices and equinoxes, celebrating the birth of the sun god on December 25th. The cross and serpent were sacred to them, and their temples varied in form, often influenced by astronomical principles. The rites of Mithras, originating in Persia and spreading through the Roman Empire, are discussed next. Mithras, as a mediator between Ormuzd, spirit of good, and Ahriman, spirit of evil, shared many resemblances with Christianity, including the identification of the object of adoration with light and the sun, legends of shepherds, and doctrines of heaven and hell. Mithraic rites were performed in caves, symbolic of the earth and the lower world. Initiation involved 3 degrees of self-purification and control over animal nature, with successful candidates hailed as lions. The Gnostic mysteries, derived from the Greek gnosis, wisdom, claimed familiarity with secret Christian doctrines, interpreting them through pagan symbolism. Simon Magus is often credited as its founder, propagating a system of manifestation resulting from positive and negative principles. The Alexandrian cult, influenced by Basilides, incorporated Egyptian Hermeticism, Oriental occultism, and Chaldean astrology, formulating the concept of Abraxas, a composite deity symbolizing the Supreme Father. The Gnostics viewed Christ as the personification of Nous, the divine mind, descending into Jesus at baptism. The mysteries of Serapis, or Asar-Hapi, a Greco-Egyptian deity, are presented, with his identity shrouded in mystery and likely known only to initiated priests. Serapis was considered a name for the sun, or a combination of Osiris Apis, possibly derived from a Hindu god of death. Labyrinths were a striking feature of Serapis rites, symbolizing the illusions of the lower world and the soul's search for truth. Hadrian's declaration that Serapis worshippers were Christians highlights the intertwined nature of these early faiths. The Odinic mysteries, originating from an Asiatic tribe led by Sigge Odin, centered around the sacred drama of Balder the Beautiful's death and resurrection. The 9 chambers of initiation represented the 9 worlds, with candidates playing the role of Balder, seeking to raise him from the dead. Atlantis and the gods of antiquity. Hall then delves into the legend of Atlantis, citing M. Pierre Termier's geological, geographical, and zoological evidence for its past existence and cataclysmic destruction. Plato's description of Atlantis as a continent apportioned among Poseidon's 10 sons is summarized, with its concentric zones of land and water, magnificent architecture, and abundant resources. The Atlantean king's shift from wisdom and virtue to ambition led to Zeus's intervention and the continent's submersion. Hall views Plato's account as both allegorical and historical, with Atlantis symbolizing the threefold nature of the universe and man. The Garden of Eden and the Deluge legend are linked to the Atlantean inundation. Atlantean sun worship and emblems like the cross and serpent are seen as influences on later civilizations, with their initiate priests carrying universal wisdom worldwide. The myth of the dying god is explored through various ancient allegories. The Babylonian and Assyrian myth of Tammuz and Ishtar, predating 4000 BC, depicts Tammuz as a solar deity and Ishtar's descent into the underworld to seek an elixir for his resurrection. This myth symbolizes the human spirit's journey through 7 spheres and its eventual ascent. The mysteries of Adonis, celebrated in Egypt, Phoenicia, and Byblos, feature Adonis, a dying sun god born at midnight on December 24th, whose resurrection on March 25th brings salvation. The gardens of Adonis symbolize premature death. The Phrygian mysteries revolve around Attis, or Attis, born on the same date, who dies under a pine tree and whose body remains undecayed in a cave. His sacramental meal and blood baptism signify philosophical rebirth. The rites of Sabazius, similar to Bacchus, involved a live snake drawn across the candidate's breast, symbolizing annual world renovation. The The Kabiric mysteries of Samothrace, centered on the murder and discovery of Kashmala's mutilated body, followed by his resurrection, are seen as analogous to Osiris, Bacchus, Adonis, and Hiram Abiff. The Hanged Man myth, particularly in Odinic rituals with Odin hanging from the world tree, signifies wisdom gained through voluntary sacrifice and spiritual realization. Hall concludes that the mystery of the dying god was universal among enlightened institutions, perpetuated in Christianity through the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The life and teachings of Thoth Hermes Trismegistus. The section on Thoth Hermes Trismegistus introduces him as the thrice greatest, a master of all arts and sciences, and the embodiment of universal mind. Iamblichus and Manetho attribute thousands of books to him, encompassing medicine, chemistry, law, astrology, music, and more. Hermes is identified with Enoch and is known as the messenger of the gods, revered through the planet Mercury. He reformed the calendar from 360 to 365 days. The mutilated Hermetic fragments are discussed, specifically the Emerald Table and the Divine Pymander. Clement of Alexandria's writings provide insight into the original 42 books of Hermes, describing a ceremonial procession where priests carried symbols related to astrology, hieroglyphics, and sacred rites. The loss of most of these books during the burning of Alexandria is lamented, with the remaining volumes believed to be secretly preserved. The sacred book of Thoth, containing secret processes for human regeneration and keys to other Hermetic writings, is said to be kept in a golden box, its contents known only to the master of the mysteries. Legend claims it is the mysterious tarot of the Bohemians. Poimandres, the Vision of Hermes, described as one of the earliest Hermetic writings, recounts Hermes' meditation and subsequent revelation of divine wisdom. Hermes beholds Poimandres, the mind of the universe, as a glorious radiance. The narrative explains creation as a process where the divine mind, through the word reason, fashions the universe from primordial space, establishing the seven governors, spirits of the planets. The universal man, created in God's image, falls in love with his shadow nature and descends into it, resulting in composite earthy man, controlled by destiny. The separation of sexes and the path to immortality through understanding are also revealed. Poimandres instructs Hermes to establish his mysteries among men so that those with mind may be saved and absorbed into the white light. The initiation of the pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Gizeh is presented as a mute testament to an unknown civilization, its magnitude overwhelming. Herodotus's account of its construction as a tomb for Pharaoh Cheops is dismissed as fraudulent, with arguments based on the lack of typical Egyptian burial chamber ornamentation and the improbability of Cheops disfiguring his name. Arabian traditions suggesting its construction as a refuge against the flood are mentioned. The Caliph al-Mamun's attempt to open the pyramid in AD 820, his discovery of no treasures, and his subsequent secret burial of funds to satisfy his workmen are recounted. The Sphinx is described as typically Egyptian and related to the Greek legend of Oedipus and his riddle. It is linked to the mystery of nature, symbolizing the secret doctrine, and passing it means attaining personal immortality. The popular theory of the Sphinx as the pyramid's true portal, though tenacious, is unproven. Hall details the internal passages and chambers of the Great Pyramid, noting the King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber, and Subterranean Chamber, along with the well and grotto, and discusses theories about their purpose and the methods of entry and exit. The pyramid mysteries are introduced, with the pyramid form symbolizing the secret doctrine and its dissemination. Its square base represents nature and its laws, its four sides and triangles symbolizing the elements and the divine being. The three main chambers are related to the heart, brain, and generative system, and the pyramid's inverted tree symbolism signifies divine wisdom disseminating throughout the world. The missing capstone is seen as emblematic of incompleteness and man's spiritual perfection. The Great Pyramid is proclaimed as the first temple of the mysteries, a place of second birth where men became gods. The King's Chamber is described as the place of the second death, where the candidate's soul soared through celestial realms, vanquishing death. Isis, the Virgin of the world. Isis of Sais is presented as the principle of natural fecundity, known by myriad names and metamorphosed into the Virgin Mary by Christianity. Apuleius's description of Isis highlights her role as nature, queen of elements, and sovereign of spirits. The theory that Isis was a historical Mayan queen is noted but dismissed in favor of her allegorical significance. Osiris is identified as the material aspect of solar activity, vitalizing the Earth's flora and fauna, while Isis represents receptive nature. The myth of Osiris's murder by Typhon, his body cut into 14 parts, and Isis's quest to gather them is recounted. The phallus, swallowed by a fish, is noted as the only part not recovered. Isis's headdress, robes, and symbols are explained, the empty throne representing her murdered husband, the lion skins of priests symbolizing solar power, and the sistrum representing continual agitation and generation. The crescent and serpents on her head symbolize the moon's dominion over water and the purification from terrestrial corruption. The grapes and corn from her breasts signify nature as the source of nutrition. The ram's heads on her pedestal denote Aries as the auspicious time for life's generation. The fiery incense in her left hand symbolizes sacred fire, while the scales in her right represent nature's exactitude and justice. Isis, standing between two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, signifies wisdom found at the point of equilibrium. Her emergence from the ocean connects her to the ancient belief of life originating from water. Harpocrates, the god of silence, accompanying Isis, warns to keep secrets from the unfit. The mummification of the Egyptian dead is discussed, with the popular belief of physical resurrection deemed untenable. Instead, it's suggested mummification was for initiates to preserve a material basis for soul manifestation on Earth, preventing reincarnation. Osiris is frequently depicted mummified, symbolizing the incarnating ego enclosed in material form. The sun, a universal deity. Sun worship is described as one of the earliest and most natural forms of religious expression, with complex modern theologies being amplifications of this aboriginal belief. The sun's role as the proxy of the supreme deity is emphasized, with various ancient gods personifying the solar principle. Altars, mounds, and temples worldwide dedicated to the sun are mentioned, linking them to astronomical observatories. The solar trinity concept is traced to the sun's three phases, rising, midday, and setting, symbolizing growth, maturity, and decay, and corresponding to God the Father. Dawn, blue, God the Sun, noonday, yellow, and God the Holy Ghost, sunset, red. The sun's annual pilgrimage through the 12 celestial houses and the precession of the equinoxes are discussed as foundational to allegorical interpretations. The sun's exaltation in Leo is noted as the reason for lion symbolism in Egyptian priestcraft. Christianity's Jesus is seen as a solar deity, his life correlating with heavenly movements. The four symbolic figures of the solar man, infant, youth, strong man, aged man, correspond to the four seasons. The December 25th birthday of the sun is highlighted as a pagan festival, later adopted by Christians. The Catholic Feast of the Assumption is also linked to astronomical phenomena. The concept of three suns, spiritual, intellectual, solar, and material within each solar system is presented as analogous to man's spirit, soul, and body. Rosicrucian scholars named these sun phases Vulcan, Christ Lucifer, and Jehovah, with Lucifer representing the intellect without spiritual illumination. The idea of the sun as a reflector of invisible spiritual light is discussed, making the material world a realm of effects. Man's threefold spiritual nature is symbolized by an inverted triangle, which, united with his threefold lower nature, upright triangle, forms the six-pointed Star of David, or Signet of Solomon. Celestial inhabitants of the sun are described as small suns, radiant energy centers, with Archangel Michael as the greatest. Alchemy's use of gold as crystallized sunlight and the concept of a spiritual seed of gold within all things are explained, tying into human regeneration. The midnight sun symbolizes the spirit shining through human organisms, representing spiritual perception beyond physical limitations. Solar colors are linked to vibratory rates, with blue for spirit, yellow for mind, and red for body, forming a tripartite understanding of reality. Christian liturgical colors are also noted for their symbolic meanings, the zodiac and its signs. The profound effect of celestial body study on ancient religions and philosophies is highlighted. The zodiac, derived from Greek terms meaning circle of animals, is described as a band of fixed stars divided into 12 houses, influencing the sun's power and qualities throughout the year. The theory that zodiacal signs symbolize the sun's power in different parts of its belt is favored over the shepherd's imagination theory. The possible original 10-house zodiac and the later insertion of Libra are discussed. The precession of the equinoxes, where the sun regresses through one zodiacal sign every 2,160 years, is explained as the basis for astrological ages like the Taurian, Arian, Piscian, and Aquarian ages, each influencing religious worship. The bull Apis was sacred in the Taurian age, the lamb in the Arian age, and the fish in the Piscian age, with Jesus as the fisher of men, and the fish as an early Christian symbol. Two distinct systems of astrological philosophy are presented: geocentric, earth-centered for the material, and heliocentric, sun-centered for the higher intellectual and spiritual aspects. The true meaning of the sun's position in a zodiacal sign is revealed to be its opposite, leading to the esoteric interpretation of Scorpio as the serpent or eagle, symbolizing concealed spiritual mystery. The lion, as the sole house of the sun, signifies power and rulership, especially in Masonry. The circular zodiac of Tentira, an ancient Egyptian artifact, illustrates these astronomical and symbolic concepts. The antiquity of the zodiac, potentially millions of years old, is linked to Atlantean or Lemurian civilizations. The division of the zodiac into decans and duodecans and their relation to Hebrew celestial intelligences or angels is discussed. Gemini and Sagittarius are also briefly interpreted. The Bembine Table of Isis. The Bembine Table of Isis, a bronze tablet with enamel and silver inlay, is introduced as a key to Chaldean, Egyptian, and Greek theology. Legend states Plato was initiated into the greater mysteries at age 49 in the Great Pyramid, where the Isaac table served as the altar. The table's symbolism baffled many scholars, but Athanasius Kircher and Eliphaz Levi offered significant interpretations. Levi connected it to the tarot cards, viewing the 21 central figures as major trumps and the unnumbered card, the Fool, as the crown of the supreme mind. The table is divided horizontally into 3 panels, possibly representing chambers of initiation or the archetypal, intellectual, and sensible worlds. It contains 45 main figures grouped into 15 triads, with 8 symbolic methods of portrayal. The border figures represent elemental beings or archetypal spheres. The Chaldean concept of 4 states of being, archetypal, intellectual, sidereal, elemental, is correlated with the table's structure. The central throne represents the all-form containing spiritual essence, from which lower worlds emanate as 9 groups of 3. The 12 governors of the universe, zodiacal signs, in the upper panel are directed by divine mind patterns. The lower panel features father fountains, distributing influences to the lower worlds. The table demonstrates that all is in God and God is in all. The creative power is explained as the supreme mind pouring out its infinity through a continuous exchange from highest to lowest. The concept of ideas, in a Platonic sense, is used to describe eternal, immaterial forms. The 21 figures in the central panel correspond to 7 principal triads and 7 superior worlds, originating from the fiery, invisible archetype. The 12 figures in the upper and lower panels are correlated to the 2 great zodiacs, fixed and movable, and to the human respiratory system. Wonders of antiquity. The practice of sealing lighted lamps in sepulchres as offerings to the god of death is described, with historical accounts of these ever-burning lamps enduring for centuries without fuel. Various theories are offered for their longevity, from natural petroleum ducts to alchemical preparations. The Greek oracles, particularly Delphi, Dodona, and Trophonius, are explored as places of prophecy where gods communicated with mankind. The oracle of Delphi, originally Pytho, involved fumes from a fissure, believed to be from the decaying serpent python, which induced prophetic ecstasy in priestesses. Dodona's oracle featured talking oak trees, birds, and brass vases, with rituals similar to Druid practices. The Cave of Trophonius, a narrow entrance into which consultants were precipitately drawn, provided prophecies through dreams and visions after drinking from springs of forgetfulness and remembrance. The 7 wonders of the world are presented as monuments perpetuating the arcana of the mysteries, symbolically linked to the 7 planets. These include the Colossus of Rhodes, Sun, Temple of Diana at Ephesus, Moon, Statue of Zeus at Olympia, Jupiter, Pharos of Alexandria, Saturn, Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, Mars, Hanging Gardens of Babylon, Venus, and the Great Pyramid Mercury. The builders of these wonders were initiates of the mysteries, concealing secret doctrines in their works. The life and philosophy of Pythagoras. The birth of Pythagoras, prophesied by the oracle of Delphi, is shrouded in legends of divine conception and his destiny to surpass all men in wisdom. His extensive travels and initiations into Egyptian, Babylonian, and Chaldean mysteries, as well as the secret traditions of Moses, are highlighted. Pythagoras is credited with coining the term philosopher and establishing a school at Crotona focused on occult mathematics, music, and astronomy. His tragic death, possibly at the hands of enemies due to his outspokenness, scattered his disciples, but his doctrines continued to be revered. Pythagorean fundamentals include the essential study of geometry, music, and astronomy, and the practice of moderation. His god was the monad, the one that is everything, with circular motion and composed of light and truth. He advocated a meatless diet for clearer reasoning and employed musical compositions and Homeric verses for healing. Friendship was considered the truest relationship, and knowledge the fruit of mental accumulation, with wisdom being the understanding of the source of all things. The famous Pythagorean upsilon symbolized the forking of the ways, representing the choice between divine and earthly wisdom. His theory of transmigration is interpreted allegorically as human beings becoming bestial when dominated by lower desires, or as reincarnation. Pythagoras divided the universe into three parts: the supreme world, spirit, superior world, immortals and archetypes, and inferior world, material creatures. The digits 1 and 2 were not considered numbers, but rather typified supermundane spheres. The 5 symmetrical geometric solids, tetrahedron, cube, octahedron, icosahedron, dodecahedron, were highly important, correlated with the 4 elements and a 5th element, ether. Divination practices of Pythagoras, including a remarkable wheel and hydromancy, are mentioned. 10 symbolic aphorisms of Pythagoras are elucidated, offering guidance on solitude, governing the tongue, recognizing God's fiat in nature, assisting the diligent, not interpreting mysteries without illumination, perseverance in the search for truth, the sanctity of the human body, avoiding distracting influences, guarding wisdom, and obliterating memories of spiritual darkness. Pythagorean astronomy posited fire as the most important element, with a flaming sphere at the center of the universe, the altar of Vesta. The universe was divided into 10 spheres, including a mysterious planet called Antichthon. Each star was considered a world with its own atmosphere. Kepler's efforts to demonstrate Platonic doctrine with the 5 regular solids are also noted. Pythagorean mathematics. The secret significance of numbers, though largely lost with Pythagoras, is explored through surviving fragments. Arithmetic is declared the mother of mathematical sciences, upon which geometry, music, and astronomy depend. The monad, the all-including one, is presented as the noble number, sire of gods and men, and its various symbolic meanings are discussed, including its relation to Leibniz's theory of world atoms. Number is defined as the extension and energy of the spermatic reasons contained in the monad. Numbers are divided into odd and even, with unity, 1 considered androgynous or evenly odd. Odd numbers are classified into incomposite, prime, composite, and incomposite composite using the sieve of Eratosthenes. Even numbers are categorized as evenly, even, evenly odd, and oddly odd. Perfect numbers, where the sum of their fractional parts equals the number itself, are explored, demonstrating their rarity and analogy to virtues as a media between excess and defect. The symbolism of the first 10 numbers, monad to decade, is extensively detailed. The monad 1 is associated with mind, hermaphrodism, God, and the cause of truth. The duad 2 symbolizes ignorance, separateness, and polarity, yet is also the mother of wisdom. The triad 3 is the first odd number, representing equilibrium, friendship, and knowledge, music, geometry, astronomy. The tetrad 4 is the primogenial number, root of all things, and symbolic of God and the 4 powers of the soul. The pentad 5 symbolizes ether, equilibrium, and nature, with the pentagram representing vitality and spiritual victory over material nature. The hexad 6 signifies creation, perfection, and marriage, being a balance number. The heptad 7 is the number of religion and life, called the motherless virgin. The obdode 8 is sacred as the number of the first cube, associated with love and prudence. The ennead 9 is associated with failure, man's embryonic life, and is the limitless number. The decade 10 is the greatest of numbers, representing perfection and comprehending all arithmetic and harmonic proportions. The human body in symbolism. The human body is presented as the oldest, the most profound, the most universal of all symbols. Greeks, Persians, Egyptians, and Hindus considered man a microcosm, epitomizing the laws and powers of the universe. Early priests used a human figure in the temple sanctuary to symbolize divine power, later becoming idols when secrets were lost. Theology is described as being built upon the foundation of the human body, with creation myths often reflecting embryology and obstetrics. Both God and man have a twofold constitution, invisible superior, visible inferior, with an intermediary sphere. The three universal centers of the body, heart, spiritual, brain, link, and generative system, physical, correspond to three suns or aspects of one sun. The heart is the center of spiritual consciousness, though sometimes used exoterically for emotions. The 3 degrees of ancient mysteries were given in chambers corresponding to these centers. Proclus is quoted on the soul's ascent to divine illumination by penetrating its interior recesses. Images of gods were symbols, not objects of worship, and man's body is the house of the individual, not the individual itself. The body's right half is light masculine, left half darkness, feminine. The human head represents intelligence, with eyes, nostrils, mouth, and ears symbolizing divine powers. Spirituality is attained by refining the lower nature. Clothing in mysteries signified form and spirituality. The earth and sidereal bodies are seen as individual creatures. Man's evolution involves disentangling from matter, with only a third of his divine nature incarnating. This process, when transcended through initiation, leads to conscious reunion with the Anthropos oversoul. The Hiramic legend. The Hiramic legend, central to Freemasonry, is presented as an allegorical tale. King Solomon, aided by Hiram, king of Tyre, builds a temple with vast resources and a multitude of workmen. Hiram Abiff, a master of the Dionysiac architects, divides workmen into 3 groups: entered apprentices, fellow craftsmen, and master masons, each with secret passwords and signs. 3 fellow craftsmen, Jubela, Jubelo, and Jubelum, murder Chiram for refusing to reveal the master's word. His body is buried, an acacia sprig marks the grave, and he is eventually resurrected by the strong grip of a lion's paw. Chiram Abiff is interpreted as my Father, the universal spirit, one in essence, 3 in aspect, a type of cosmic martyr and crucified spirit of good, paralleling Osiris. The name Chiram is linked to 3 Hebrew consonants signifying sun's light, spirit air, and water humidity, forming the universal agent or fire of nature. The number 33, prominent in Masonic symbolism and the life of Jesus, is discussed in relation to the temple's duration, David's reign, and Masonic degrees. The Hiramic legend's underlying principles are traced to ancient mysteries, particularly Egyptian rites of Osiris. The martyrdom of Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templars, is linked to Chiram's murder, with the 3 ruffians representing the Pope, King, and executioners. Alternatively, the legend is seen as invented by Elias Ashmole to symbolize the fate of King Charles I. For mystic Christian Masons, Chiram represents Christ, his murderers, ignorance, superstition, and fear, obstructing the erection of the Temple of Universal Brotherhood. The legend is also seen as embodying the vicissitudes of philosophy itself, with the pagan mysteries as the architects of civilization, their power personified in Chiram. The Dionysiac architects, progenitors of modern Freemasons, built temples based on secret architectonic knowledge and cosmic principles, leaving their marks on stones throughout Europe. The lion and grip of the lion's paw are noted for their Mithraic tinge. The pineal gland is linked to Chiram as the spirit fire, lifted through the spinal column's 33 segments, opening the eye of Horus in the human skull. The astronomical aspect of the Hiramic legend is explored, with Chiram's tragedy enacted annually by the sun's passage through zodiacal signs, murdered by winter signs and resurrected by vernal ones. The urn containing Chiram's ashes symbolizes the human heart. The Pythagorean theory of music and color, harmony is defined as the prerequisite of beauty, with the universe made of successive gradations of good. The Greeks likely gained musical knowledge from Egyptians, who attributed its founding to Hermes. The lyre was a secret symbol of human constitution, with the body as the instrument, nerves as strings, and spirit as the musician. Pythagoras is credited with discovering the diatonic scale through observation of hammers and weights, revealing mathematical foundations of music. The Pythagorean tetractys, or pyramid of dots, hides the key to harmonic ratios. Pythagoras applied harmonic laws to all natural phenomena, noting the progression of elements by octaves, as in modern chemistry. He used musical medicine to influence mind and body, linking the 7 Greek modes to emotions and planets. The music of the spheres, a sublime Pythagorean speculation, conceived the universe as an immense monochord with a single string connecting spirit and matter. The universe was divided into 9 or 12 parts, each sounding a tone based on planetary velocity and magnitude. The 7 sacred vowels were related to the 7 planetary heavens. The Greeks also recognized a relationship between music and architectural forms, leading Goethe to say, "Architecture is crystallized music." Sound chambers in mysteries amplified voices, and elements were believed to have individual keynotes that could disintegrate compounds if sounded. The philosophy of color is explored, with light as the basic physical manifestation of life. Color is described as a rate of vibration, revealing a supersensible universe beyond human perception. Ancient cities and ziggurats were colored according to planets, and Tibetan art used colors to express moods. The Pythagorean tetractys sets forth theories of color in music, with the first 3 dots as threefold white light, and the remaining 7 as spectrum colors and musical notes. The 7 logi, or creative lords, are seen as streams of force, spectrum, from the Eternal One. Arbitrary arrangements of planets, colors, and musical notes are discussed, with Mars as Du, Sun as Rur, etc. Flood's diagrams on elemental harmony illustrate interpenetrating pyramids of fire and earth, showing consonant intervals between elements. Fishes, insects, animals, reptiles, and birds, Part 1. Creatures of water, air, and earth were venerated as symbols of invisible forces. The fish symbolized the life germ due to its origin in water and prolific nature. Eating fish on Friday is linked to pagan ritualism honoring Venus Freya. Early Christians likened converts to fish, returning to the Sea of Christ at baptism. Composite creatures in ancient zoology and initiatory rituals symbolized aspects of human consciousness, often concealing spiritual truths. The whale of Jonah is interpreted as a legend of initiation, representing ignorance engulfing man. Leviathan, the sea serpent, symbolizes solar life force imprisoned in water and divine energy in man. Insects, like poisonous creatures, symbolized nature spirits and daemons inhabiting the atmosphere. They were also emblems of disease or destructive human qualities. The Egyptian scarab symbolized body strength, soul resurrection, and the Creator as Lord of the Sun, with its habits paralleling cosmic phenomena. Scarabs placed on mummies were meant for the opening of the mouth in the afterlife. The scorpion symbolized wisdom and self-destruction, its sting representing the spinal fire or the backbiter. The butterfly, under the name Psyche, symbolized the human soul's metamorphosis through 3 stages, resembling mystery initiation degrees. The beehive in masonry signifies diligence and labor, while the bee itself is a symbol of wisdom and generative power. The fly, particularly Beelzebub, symbolized a divine power that destroyed decay and promoted health. Reptiles, especially the serpent, were universal symbols of wisdom, salvation, and immortality, representing reincarnation due to their shedding of skin. The serpent entwining a staff is the emblem of physicians. The antipathy towards the snake in Christendom is based on a misunderstanding of the Garden of Eden allegory, where the serpent brings knowledge of self. Winged serpents, seraphim, symbolized invisible hierarchies. Lizards were associated with Mercury due to their rapid motion. Crocodiles, both symbols of Typhon and the supreme deity, were revered for their mysterious ability to sense Nile inundations. The turtle symbolized longevity, wisdom, and the universe's support. Composite creatures like the Sphinx and Centaur signify the composite nature of man and celestial hierarchies. The Urias, a coiled serpent on Egyptian initiates' foreheads, represented the divine fire ascending the tree of life. Fishes, insects, animals, reptiles, and birds, Part 2. Birds symbolized aspiration, purity, and beauty, capable of levitation, thus partaking of a nature superior to terrestrial creatures. Feathers signified divinity and accomplishment. Angels were given wings as intermediaries between gods and men. The eagle was Jupiter's bird, signifying demiurgic forces and the sun in its material phase, also an alchemical symbol of sulfur and the secret processes of transmutation. The thunderbird among American Indians is a divine creature causing storms. Hawks were sacred to the sun in Egypt, and the cock rooster was a phallic symbol of watchfulness and defense. The peacock symbolized wisdom and immortality due to its many eyes and the incorruptibility of its flesh. The ibis was revered in Egypt for destroying poisonous reptiles and was sacred to Thoth. Nocturnal birds like owls and bats symbolized sorcery or divine sciences. The goose represented the primitive substance from which worlds were fashioned, and the crow symbolized chaos. The swan symbolized the spiritual grace of the initiate. Vultures, buzzards, and condors signified disintegrative divine power that purified lower spheres. The dove, an ancient Yonic emblem, represented the Holy Ghost, the third person of the creative triad, and was a messenger of divine will. The phoenix, the most celebrated symbolic creature, is described as being reborn from its own dead self, symbolizing the immortality of the human soul and alchemical transmutation. Its resemblance to the eagle is noted, with the modern Masonic eagle possibly being a conventionalized phoenix. The Great Seal of the United States, with its phoenix-like eagle and unfinished pyramid, is seen as bearing occult and Masonic symbols, suggesting Rosicrucian influence in its design and the founding of the US. The lion, as king of animals, is sacred to the sun and symbolizes vigilance. The cat, sacred to Diana and Bast, symbolized the magnetic forces of nature and eternity. The apis, or Egyptian bull, was a sacred vehicle for Osiris's soul, conceived by lightning and marked with specific symbols. Its drowning and resurrection symbolized eternal renovation and the washing away of material nature. The ram became the vehicle of solar power in the Aryan Age, symbolizing the universal Savior and the Lamb of God. The goat, both phallic and an emblem of courage, is linked to the scapegoat allegory. Deer were sacred in Bacchic mysteries and associated with the moon goddess. The wolf is usually associated with evil, exemplified by the Fenris wolf devouring Odin. The unicorn, a curious creation, symbolized the illumined spiritual nature of the initiate and the pineal gland. The Set monster, Typhon, symbolized the hippopotamus and the ass, while the hog symbolized the occult art. The monkey represented irrational man, and the dog symbolized faithfulness and Mercury. The horse symbolized the body of man bearing his spiritual constitution, and the winged horse or magic carpet symbolized the secret doctrine. Flowers, plants, fruits, and trees, Yoni and phallus, symbols of God's creative power, were worshipped across ancient cultures, with examples like the Garden of Eden and the Pyramid. The mysteries glorified the home as a trinity of father, mother, and child, with the universe likened to a family. The true mystery of the Madonna holding the Holy Babe is presented as divine dignity and nature's perfect achievement. Flowers were chosen as symbols for their variety, myths, environment, shape, brilliance, or healing properties, often representing sexual purity. The lotus and rose, both Yonic emblems, symbolized maternal creative mystery and spiritual unfoldment, corresponding to Hindu chakras or spinning vortices of energy along the spinal column. The number of petals on a lotus carried symbolic meaning for man, the universe, and gods. Cultus arborum, tree worship, was prevalent, with trees symbolizing power, integrity, and divine protection. The macrocosm was seen as a divine tree, like the Kabbalistic Sephirothic tree, with roots in spirit and branches in tangible existence. The Scandinavian world tree Yggdrasil supported 9 spheres. The tree symbolized man as a microcosm, with the serpent around its trunk representing mind or the cosmic mind. Trees were also seen as illumined philosophers or priests. The tree of life and tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented equilibrium and polarity, respectively. The oak, pine, ash, cypress, and palm held specific symbolic importance. The acacia, or tamarisk, was highly esteemed, symbolizing the vernal equinox, purity, immortality, and the mysteries. Fruits like apricot, quinceonic, grapes, and figs, phallic, were symbolic. The pomegranate was the mystic fruit of Eleusinian rites, binding Proserpine to Pluto's realms and symbolizing natural fecundity. Wine from grapes symbolized false life and the adversary, but also the solar fire and divine enthusiasm. The mandrake was believed to possess remarkable magical powers due to its narcotic properties and resemblance to the human body, symbolizing the meeting point of vegetable and animal kingdoms. The onion symbolized the universe's concentric planes, and garlic was a powerful agent against obsession and insanity. Trifoliate plants like the shamrock represented the Trinity. Wreaths, often of evergreens, signified consecration, perpetuity of youth, and existence. Alchemists symbolized metals by trees, illustrating that all metals were branches of solar life, growing through natural and artificial means. Stones, metals, and gems. The four primary elements have analogues in man's body, with rocks and earth corresponding to bones and flesh. The bones of Saturn symbolize the spirits of men, and Saturn, as the substructure of creation, is associated with the stone. Litholatry, or stone worship, is presented as an early form of religious expression, with remnants found worldwide in monoliths like those at Karnak and Stonehenge. Rocking or Logan stones demonstrated ancient mechanical skill and were considered living stones. Stones also played a role in law and divination. The black stone in Mecca is revered as a symbol of divine favor. The magic of metals and gems is discussed, with metals identified with planetary deities, gold with the sun, silver with the moon. The four Greek ages, golden, silver, bronze, iron, represent periods of birth, growth, maturity, and decay, aligning with Hindu yugas. Magical rings and talismanic jewels were believed to protect against sickness and death, with the ring itself symbolizing attainment and immortality. Magicians used specific gems for each day of the week, corresponding to planetary influences. The crystal ball symbolized the crystalline universal egg and the etheric sphere. Meteors were divine tokens. Ceremonial magic and sorcery. Ceremonial magic, the art of invoking and controlling spirits, is traced back to Egypt, where black magicians from Atlantis perverted the mysteries. These sorcerers destroyed keys to ancient wisdom, introduced idolatry, and created elaborate theologies to confuse the masses. Medieval Kabbalists practiced ceremonial magic, sometimes straying into demonism and witchcraft. Elemental beings, when uncontrolled, could have disastrous results, as with Napoleon's Little Red Demon. Black magic, driven by human selfishness, is described as the perversion of occult power for personal desire, where a magician might trade his eternal soul for temporal power. Vampirism is also linked to black magic, with sorcerers stealing vital energies from others. The practice of ceremonial magic involves invoking spirits within a protective circle, using hallowed names of God and making demands. Pacts with demons are detailed, where the magician agrees to provide human souls in exchange for worldly treasures and desires. The pentagram, a five-pointed star, is presented as a time-honored symbol of magical arts, representing the five properties of the great magical agent and the five extremities of the human body. In black magic, the pentagram is inverted or distorted, called the sign of the cloven hoof or goat of Mendes. The elements and their inhabitants. Paracelsus's occult pneumatology is explored, detailing his belief that each of the four primary elements, earth, fire, air, water, has a subtle, vaporous principle and a gross corporeal substance. The invisible, spiritual counterparts of visible nature are inhabited by elementals or nature spirits, gnomes, earth, undines, water, sylphs, air, and salamanders, fire. These beings, resembling human beings in shape, live in their own worlds, invisible to undeveloped human senses. The Greek term daemon was applied to higher elementals, sometimes mistaken for divine natures of philosophers. Paracelsus distinguished between inherited corporeal flesh and the more attenuated transubstantial flesh of elementals, noting that elementals, having only one principle, ether, lack an immortal spirit and disintegrate back into their original element upon death. They live long lives due to minimal wear and tear. The gnomes, dwelling in terreous ether, work with rocks, flora, and mineral elements, some being guardians of hidden treasures in caves, Nibelungen. Tree and forest sprites also belong to this group. Elementals work for the plants, performing natural selection and other beneficent offices. Gnomes vary in size and can change their stature. Their ruler is Gob, whose subjects are called goblins. They are assigned to the north and associated with melancholy. Undines, functioning in humid, liquid ether, control water in nature and are typically female, known for their beauty and grace. They inhabit waterfalls, rivers, and lakes, and are sometimes capable of assuming human appearance. Their ruler is Nexa. Salamanders, spirits of fire, live in attenuated spiritual fire ether. They are essential for material fire but dangerous to communicate with due to their fiery element. Some appear as balls of light or lizard-like forms. Jinn is their magnificent flaming ruler. They control beings of fiery temperament and influence the emotional nature through body heat and blood. Sylphs, living in the invisible, intangible air ether, are the highest of elementals. They model snowflakes, gather clouds, and act as spirits of the air. Their ruler is Paralda, residing on the highest mountain. Sylphs are mirthful, changeable, and eccentric, influencing human genius and the nervous system. Elementals were sometimes believed to wage war upon one another through physical manifestations, with each of the 4 fixed zodiacal signs assigned to an elemental kingdom. The Christian Church mistakenly labeled all elementals as demons. Elementals are subhuman in rational intelligence, but advanced in their elemental-specific knowledge. Incubus and succubus are described as evil, unnatural parasitic creatures feeding on negative thoughts and emotions, leading to possession and mental disorders. Vampires are defined as astral bodies seeking to prolong physical existence by stealing vital energies. The Count de Gabalis' concept of immaculate conception as the union of a human with an elemental is also noted. Hermetic pharmacology, chemistry, and therapeutics. The art of healing, originally a secret science of the priestcraft, was monopolized by them, with only intellectually and morally qualified individuals admitted. Hippocrates separated medicine from other temple sciences, leading to modern scientific materialism. Hermes is credited as the founder of healing arts, with his emerald tablet being a high-order chemical formula. Paracelsus, the greatest physician of all times according to occultists, reformed medieval medicine based on Hermetic philosophy. He traveled extensively, learning from gypsies and Arabians, and cured various diseases including leprosy and cancer. His peculiar temperament and intemperance were often criticized, but his vast writings contradict accusations of excessive alcohol use. His methods were heterodox, leading to persecution, and he likely died from a scuffle with hired assassins. The Paracelsian system posited that all things subsist on a vital substance called archaeus, astral light or spiritual air, originating from the Earth's spiritual body. Every created thing has an invisible, ethereal, vital body or etheric double that transmits archaeus and, if deranged, causes disease. Plants and animals could absorb disease elements from humans, acting as therapeutic agents. Paracelsus believed plants revealed their medicinal uses by their shape, aiding in removing diseased mumia from patients. 7 primary causes of disease were recognized: evil spirits, degenerate actions, derangement of spiritual and material nature, unhealthy mental attitudes, karma, law of compensation, celestial body influences, misuse of faculties, and foreign substances. 7 methods of healing included spells, invocations, vibration, chanting, music, color, talismans, herbs, prayer, diet regulation, and practical medicine, bleeding, purging. Paracelsus himself used these methods and gathered dew under specific planetary configurations for medicinal purposes. Hermetic herbalism and pharmacology saw herbs as sacred, made by gods for human ills, embodying healing and spiritual development. Nicholas Culpeper, a famous herbalist, correlated plants with planets for therapeutic purposes. Incenses and perfumes were used to stimulate the spirit. Poisonous herbs were studied, with Egyptians using extracts for temporary clairvoyance during initiations. The sect of the assassins used narcotics for control. Hermetic medicine emphasized spiritual and psychophysical derangements as disease causes, using suggestive therapy. Egyptian priests used chants and mantras to set up vibratory reactions for healing and stimulating consciousness centers. Chemical syllables are discussed as representing the materia prima, with 7 powers combined according to cosmic laws. The Kabbalah, the secret doctrine of Israel. Kabbalism is presented as a logical, simple, and absolute doctrine containing the key of occult science, and a philosophy simple as the alphabet, profound and infinite as the Word. Hebrew theology is divided into 3 parts: the Law for all, the Mishnah, soul of the law for rabbins, and the Kabbalah, soul of the law for highest initiates. Moses is believed to have received the Kabbalah from God on Mount Sinai, concealing its secrets in the Pentateuch. The origin of Kabbalism is debated, with some believing it was taught by angels to Adam. Notable angels like Raziel, Tophiel, Raphael, Metatron, and Michael instructed patriarchs. The three greatest Kabbalistic books are the Sefer Yetzirah, Sefer HaZohar, and the Apocalypse. The Sefer Yetzirah is attributed to Rabbi Akiba, and the Sefer HaZohar to Simeon ben Jochai, with both containing profound philosophical tenets. The Kabbalistic system of worlds is illustrated by concentric rings representing 40 spheres of vibration emanating from Ein Sof, the incomprehensible principle. Ein Sof is likened to a great field of earth-nourishing universes, gods, and man, all returning to it in the end. The process of creation involves Ein Sof concentrating to a central point, Kether, the crown, from which 9 other globes radiate, forming the first system of Sephiroth. These 10 globes are reflected into 4 great world chains: Atziluth divine names, Braya archangelic, Yetzirah hierarchical formations, and Asha elemental substances, each with 10 spheres. The 10 names of God are assigned to the Atziluthic spheres, forming Adam Kadmon, prototypic universal man. In the Briatic world, the spheres are archangels, manifesting the powers of God. In the Yetziratic world, they become hierarchies of celestial creatures, choirs of Yetzirah, representing the invisible spiritual zodiac. The world of Asya, the lowest, is where physical matter and the sidereal system are formed, distorted by evil, creating hierarchies of demons. The Kabbalists correlated these worlds and intelligences to Ezekiel's vision, with the human body also seen as a material expression of 10 globes of light, microcosm. The Zohar emphasizes the science of equilibrium and that unbalanced forces perish in the void. Man's consciousness is taught to climb the rings of existence through the 50 gates of light, with Moses passing through 49 and Christ the 50th. The Tree of the Sephiroth, an invaluable compendium of secret philosophy, consists of 10 globes, Sephiroth arranged in 3 columns: mercy, severity, mildness or wisdom, strength, beauty, and connected by 22 Hebrew letters, channels. The 32 paths of wisdom are analogous to the first 32 degrees of Freemasonry. The tree is also seen as the archetypal, or heavenly, Adam, with Sephiroth corresponding to parts of the human body. The Tetragrammaton, Ehev HaJehovah, is explained through its letters and numerical values, and its connection to Jehoshua Jesus by inserting the letter Shin is highlighted. Kabbalistic keys to the creation of man. Hall critiques literal interpretations of biblical narratives, arguing they obscure profound truths. The Old Testament, particularly the Pentateuch, is presented as containing secrets of Egyptian initiators concerning the genesis of the God-man, hidden through Kabbalistic processes of gematria, notarikon, and temura. Examples of gematria, numerical equivalents of letters, and notarikon, initial letters forming new words, are provided. Temura, letter substitution and rearrangement, is also explained. The creation account in Genesis is reinterpreted. The plural androgynous Hebrew word Elohim, translated as God, reveals the pantheistic nature of divinity and the male-female principle before sex division. The word replenish implies a humanity existing prior to the described creation. Various philosophical interpretations of Adam's identity are discussed, from the Platonic idea of humanity to the Pythagorean monad. The Isarim taught 4 Adams corresponding to the 4 Kabbalistic worlds. The universal nature of Adam is linked to elements from 7 worlds. St. Augustine's Notarikon of Adam ADAM for 4 corners of the world and his view of Adam as a prototype of Christ are noted. The allegory of Eve's creation from Adam's side signifies the lower, mortal part of man taking on temporal existence. The Mohammedan view of paradise as a higher sphere, not a physical garden, is presented. Adam's footprint on Ceylon is linked to the Garden of Eden, from which humanity migrated. Adam, as macrocosm, is the gigantic androgyne Demiurgus, and as microcosm he contains all qualities of his maker. Phallic symbolism in Jewish mysticism is explored, with Adam seen as a type of Shiva's lingam. The Kabbalistic assertion that Adam contained all Israelite souls is mentioned. The concept of Adam, David, and the Messiah containing one soul, world soul, is introduced. The Jewish mysteries' doctrine of shadows of the gods is explained, where the Elohim beheld their own shadows to form inferior creation. The ritualistic drama of creation is linked to the tabernacle, with Adam's banishment from Eden representing man's exile from truth, the cherubim guarding the gate, and the serpent transforming into a radiant angel, the adversary, lead Adam to realize that the path of sorrow and illusion was a necessary guide to spiritual liberation and the ultimate union with the divine. An analysis of tarot cards. The origin of playing cards and their introduction to Europe are debated, with the theory that tarot cards were brought by Knights Templars from Saracens or mystical Syrian sects concealing arcane meanings for amusement and gambling. The Gypsy connection to Egyptian religious symbolism, specifically the Book of Enoch Thoth Tarot, is also explored. Court de Gibelline believed tarot means royal road to wisdom. French secret societies are hinted to have used tarot in initiations. The tarot is seen as a vital element in Rosicrucian symbolism, possibly the Book of Universal Knowledge. W.F.C. Wigston found evidence that Sir Francis Bacon used tarot symbolism in his ciphers. Tarot cards are to be considered as separate hieroglyphs representing principles in nature, or as vowels and consonants of a philosophic alphabet. The diverse opinions on tarot symbolism, from Court de Gibelline to Eliphas Lévy and Arthur Edward Waite, are noted for their irreconcilable differences. The common supposition that the 22 major trumps represent Hebrew letters is noted as lacking substantial evidence beyond numerical coincidence. The problem of assigning a Hebrew letter to the unnumbered fool card Lamat is discussed, with Levi placing it between the 20th and 21st trumps and Court de Gibelline assigning it to Aziv. The Fool is likened to the material universe, a world of unreality where divine sparks are masked. Detailed descriptions and interpretations of the major tarot trumps are provided. Le Bateleur, the Juggler, 1. Creation as a dream, existence as a juggling of divine elements, and man as a ball in the juggler's hands. He stands behind a table with symbols of the 4 lower worlds, wearing a hat shaped like the cosmic lemniscate and holding the rod of Jacob. La Papesse, the female pope, 2, associated with the legend of Pope Joan, symbolizing the Shekinah or divine wisdom, holding the Torah and keys to secret doctrine, seated between pillars Jachin and Boaz. L'Imperatrice, the Empress, 3, linked to the woman clothed with the sun in Revelation, a winged figure symbolizing generation and the threefold spiritual world producing the fourfold material world. L'Empereur, the Emperor, 4, the Demiurgus, the great king of the inferior world, dressed in armor, seated on a cubic stone with crossed legs forming the symbol of sulfur. Le Pape, the Pope, 5, represents the high priest of a mystery school, wearing a tiara, holding a triple cross, and making the ecclesiastic sign of esotericism to 2 suppliants representing polarity. L'Amoureux, the Lovers, 6, shows a youth choosing between 2 female figures, spiritual and animal soul, guided by fate, Cupid. Le Chariot, the Chariot, 7, a victorious warrior in a chariot drawn by sphinxes, symbolizing the exalted one who rides in creation, with the 7 planets as chariots of solar power. La Justice, Justice, 8, a crowned figure with a sword and scales, symbolizing eternal justice and balanced forces. L'Ermite, the Hermit, 9, an aged man with a lamp and staff, personifying secret organizations preserving ancient wisdom, with the staff representing knowledge and the 7 sections referring to spinal centers. La Roue de Fortune, the Wheel of Fortune, 10, a mysterious wheel with 8 spokes, Buddhist cycle of necessity, with Anubis and Typhon clinging to the rim and the immobile Sphinx above, signifying the lower universe and divine wisdom as arbiter. La Force, strength, 11, a girl mastering a lion, symbolizing spiritual strength or secret wisdom, with the lion representing the animal world or the summer solstice. Le Pendu, the Hanged Man, 12, a youth hanging by one leg, forming an inverted sulfur symbol, signifying the accomplishment of the magnum opus or the loss of spiritual faculties. Linked to Judas Iscariot and Prometheus. La Mort, death, 13, a reaping skeleton, symbolizing physical death but philosophically the irresistible impulse for beings to be absorbed into the divine condition, representing constant renovation. La Temperance, temperance, 14, an angelic figure pouring liquid between 2 urns, symbolizing the passage of life forces between invisible and visible worlds, with the sun on her forehead controlling the flow. Le Diable, the Devil, 15, a creature resembling Pan, symbolizing the magic powers of the astral light, with human animal natures chained to its footstool and a torch representing false light. Linked to Typhon, Le Feu du Ciel, the Fire of Heaven. 16. A tower struck by lightning, symbolizing the fall of man or the destruction of humanity's divine nature, linked to the missing capstone of the universal house. Les Étoiles, the Stars. 17. A girl pouring water from 2 urns onto land and sea, with 8 stars above, symbolizing Isis, causing Nile inundations and the release of germinal life. La Lune, the Moon. 18. Luna rising between 2 towers with a dog and wolf baying, and a crawfish emerging from a pool, symbolizing the Moon Goddess, guardians of the tropics, and the soul's quest for reality. Le Soleil, the Sun. 19. 2 children, Gemini, in a garden, with the rising sun above, symbolizing faith and reason, and the harmony of mind and heart. Le Jugement, the Judgment. 20. Figures rising from tombs with an angel blowing a trumpet, representing the liberation of man's threefold spiritual nature from the material, with the trumpet blast as the creative word. Le Monde, the World. 21. A female figure draped with a scarf holding wands, surrounded by a wreath, with the cherubim of Ezekiel's vision at the corners, symbolizing the microcosm and macrocosm and the attainment of the initiate's crown. The 4 suits of the minor trumps are analogous to the 4 elements, corners of creation, and Kabbalistic worlds, linked to the Tetragrammaton. The court cards represent major divisions of society, zodiacal signs, and various social roles. Modern playing cards are seen as symbolic of the year's divisions, seasons, and lunar months. Chess is also analyzed as a symbolic game, with pieces representing elements of life and philosophy, depicting the eternal struggle between light and darkness. The Tabernacle in the Wilderness. The tabernacle is described as being derived from Egyptian mysteries, with its construction overseen by Bezaleel and Aholiab, representing the lion and the eagle fixed zodiac signs. The tabernacle itself symbolizes the soul body in man, the dwelling place of his divine nature. The outer court, with the altar of burnt offerings and laver of purification, signifies the initial purification of the candidate. The interior of the tabernacle is divided into the holy place, with the 7-branched candlestick, table of shewbread, and altar of burnt incense, and the Holy of Holies, with the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing aspects of the human body and spiritual centers. Josephus's interpretations of the tabernacle's symbolism, relating its parts to the land, sea, heavens, months, planets, and elements, are presented. The metals used: gold for spirituality, silver for purified human nature, brass for average individuals, are also emblematic. The 3 divisions of the tabernacle are linked to the 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge in Freemasonry. The robes and adornments of Jewish priests also hold secret significance, representing regenerated nature and spiritual energies. The Urim and Thummim, mysterious objects in the high priest's breastplate, were used in divination, with their stones possibly symbolizing the 12 zodiacal constellations. The high priest's bonnet, with its golden crown and tiny gold cup, symbolized his rule over 3 worlds and his receptive nature for divine life. The Fraternity of the Rose Cross. The Rosicrucian order is shrouded in mystery, with 4 distinct theories regarding its origin and purpose. The first postulate assumes the historical existence of the order based on the Fama Fraternitatis. This manifesto describes the life of the highly illuminated Father, CRC, a German noble who, dissatisfied with cloister education, traveled to Damascus and Damcar to study with Arabian mystics and Kabbalists. He learned Arabic, translated a sacred book, and then went to Fez to learn from magicians. Upon returning to Germany, he established the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, with 3 brethren, who then expanded to 8 members. They prepared a secret cipher language and a great dictionary of wisdom. The 6 rules for the brethren, emphasizing healing the sick without charge, simple dress, annual meetings, finding successors, using RC as their seal, and maintaining secrecy for 100 years, are outlined. The accidental discovery of CRC's miraculously preserved body and secret vault 20 years after his death is a central part of the Fama's narrative. Hall notes the lack of historical corroboration for many details in the Fama. The second postulate accepts the Rosicrucians' historical existence, but debates their origin, suggesting a medieval European foundation linked to alchemy, or possibly an Egyptian, Persian, or Chaldean origin. Johann Valentine Andrea is considered by some as the true founder. The ability of the order to maintain absolute secrecy with members across Europe is highlighted. Pseudo-Rosicrucians abounded, using the name for commercial or political gain. The symbolic principles of Rosicrucianism are profound, and their charts concern cosmic principles. Communication with the order involved mysterious letters and unannounced visits from adepts. The Rosicrucian rose is suspected to be a conventionalization of the Egyptian Hindu lotus with similar symbolic meaning. Doubt exists whether Rosicrucian comes from the rose and cross symbol or from rose dew. The connection between Masonry and Rosicrucianism is explored, with Elias Ashmole noted as a founder of the first Grand Lodge in London. One theory suggests Freemasonry was an outgrowth of Rosicrucianism, with the adepts later withdrawing from the Masonic hierarchy. The third postulate is a sweeping denial of Rosicrucianism's factual foundation, asserting it as a literary creation or satire. Johann Valentin Andrea's authorship of the Confessio is acknowledged, but his purpose remains speculative. This postulate questions whether the entire story was a magnificent imposture. Eugenius Philalethes and Robert Flude are cited as defenders of the order's concrete existence, while others asserted its fraudulent origin. Sir Francis Bacon's possible involvement in writing the Fama and Confessio is also considered. The fourth postulate offers a transcendental explanation. Rosicrucians possessed supernatural powers, capable of functioning in an etheric body, not subject to physical limitations. They were seen as supermen, masters of the philosopher's stone, human regeneration, able to draw the nails from the cross, free the spiritual nature through alchemical initiations. This theory asserts that the true Rosicrucian Brotherhood is a school of supermen existing in the inner planes of nature, accessible only to those who transcend material limitations. The Confessio Fraternitatis is cited as evidence of their invisibility to the unworthy. The Comte de Germain is regarded as their highest adept, and the order is linked to Tubal-Cain and Hiram Abiff, aiming to preserve man's spiritual nature. Rosicrucian doctrines and tenets are gleaned from the Confessio Fraternitatis. The 14 chapters are summarized, revealing themes of God's revelation of secrets, the decadence of contemporary philosophy, the Rosicrucian secret philosophy founded on comprehensive knowledge, the division of the fraternity into grades, and the importance of pure hearts and minds for true understanding. They aim to reform European governments, overthrow false theology, and increase the number of their fraternity. The value of sacred scriptures is emphasized, but also the need to seek their true eternal meaning beyond sectarian opinions. The Rosicrucians warn against selfish motives in seeking knowledge, prophesying the fall of the Christian Church for its misuse of power. They admonish seekers to avoid pseudo-alchemists and meaningless enigmas, stressing that truth is simple and hidden from the proud. Johann Valentin Andrea is generally reputed as the author of the Confessio, but Sir Francis Bacon is suspected of using Andrea as a pseudonym, with cryptic evidence pointing to this. John Hayden and Thomas Vaughan, Rosicrucian apologists, attest to the adept's superhuman powers, including invisibility and the ability to prophesy and heal. The three major objects of the fraternity are identified: abolition of monarchical forms of government and substitution with philosophic rule. Rosicrucians are seen as instigators of modern democracies, including the American War of Independence and the French Revolution. The Great Seal of the United States is presented as a reminder of their sub rosa activities. Reformation of science, philosophy, and ethics. Rosicrucians aimed to re-establish ancient mysteries for instructing humanity in the secret eternal doctrine, preserving the identity and interrelationship of the three selves. Discovery of the universal medicine, panacea, for all diseases. Accounts suggest their success in finding the elixir of life, prolonging human existence, and transmuting base metals into gold, allegorically representing human regeneration. The path of spiritual attainment is divided into three mountains: Sophia, Kabbalah, and Magia. The fundamental symbols, the rose and the cross, are discussed as both universal phallic emblems and representations of human regeneration through the union of lower and higher natures. The rosy cross is also a hieroglyphic for the universal medicine. 15 Rosicrucian and Kabbalistic diagrams. This section explores 15 diagrams from Georges von Welling's The Magical, Kabbalistical, and Theosophical Writings, described as invaluable additions to authentic Kabbalistic and Rosicrucian diagrams. Lucifer is presented as a great mystery in symbolism, with these plates revealing his true identity, number 741. Specific diagrams are analyzed. Table I, figures 1 to 11. Figure 1 is a Ptolemaic chart showing the relationship of primordial elements and spheres, with Shamayim, ocean of spirit, as the supreme deity. Figures 2 to 9 symbolize elemental and spiritual elements, with figure 11 representing the beginning and end of all creatures. Table EI, figures 1251, figures 1214, demonstrate the sphere as fire, water, and air, and the cube as earth, symbolizing spirit and matter. Figure 15, representing salt, is described as the first created substance, concentrating all creation and forming the 12 fundamental pillars of the invisible church, 72 ballers 12 by 6 sides of cube. Magical numbers derived from powers of 7, 7, 7, 7, etc. Measure periods of eternity. Figures 1651 represent various alchemical substances and their attributes. Table EI, figure 52, depicts the 7 days of creation within 3 concentric rings, symbolizing the macrocosmic and microcosmic auric eggs. Table IV, figure 53, represents the symbolic tomb of Christian Rosenkreuz, showing the divine sphere, throne of God, 7 spirits, and the divine outflow descending to Lucifer's throne and irradiating through zodiacal orders. Table V, figure 54, similar to figure 53, but depicts the universe after Lucifer's descent into matter, causing darkness and chaos. Table V, figures 55 to 9, symbolizes chaos, separation of light from darkness, regions of elements and their inhabitants, and the solar system. Table VI, figures 1, 5, 7, 8, figure 1 is the triune divine sulfur, figures 2, 5 are characters for common destructive sulfur, oil of vitriol, tin, and iron. Figure 7 is the Copernican solar system, and figure 8 is the Last Judgment, with the sun removed and earth in its place. Table V, figure 6, marks the center of eternity, with divine manifestations through 3 circles within an equilateral triangle, surrounded by the 7 spirits and angelic worlds. Table X, figure 9, a synthesis of the Old and New Testaments, showing interblending planes of being, planetary angels, and the Tree of Life and Tree of Knowledge. Table X, figures 10-15, figure 10 shows the New Jerusalem as a cube, while figures 11-15 are cipher symbols of angels, Antichrist, and the Beast of Babylon. Table XI, figures 1 to 11, figure 1 is the solar system according to Genesis, figure 2, the Earth's globe with zodiacal signs, figure 3, universal Mercury, figure 4, saltpeter. Figure 5 shows planetary angles and fixed stars, Figure 6, the microcosm with planets and zodiacal signs on the human body. Figure 7 is the universal character from which all others are taken. Table G, figures 12-19, figure 12 is a mirror of astrological aspects, figure 14 is a secret alchemical formula. Figure 16 shows the solar system with internal and spiritual heavens. Figure 17 depicts the creation of the solar system, and figure 18, the division of waters from Genesis. Table Shi-Yi, figures 1-4, figure 1 is Anisoph, figure 2 symbolizes the Trinity, figure 3 represents the Trinity with its outflow, figure 4, Lucifer's abode and chaos. Table Exiv, figures 5, 7, 8, figure 5 shows the Trinity in a cross, figure 7, the road to paradise, figure 8, the earth before the flood. Table XV, figures 6, 9, 10, figure 6 is the secret of nature, figure 9, the solar system, figure 10, the dot of rest surrounded by a triangle symbolizing regeneration. Alchemy and its exponents. The possibility of transmuting base metals into gold is affirmed, challenging modern skepticism. Alchemy is presented as a divinely revealed science, along with astrology, given to man to regain his lost estate. Alchemy's earthly body is chemistry, but true understanding requires penetrating the veil of Isis. The origins of alchemy are traced to the Egyptian demigod Hermes Trismegistus and the Emerald Tablet. The account of Alexander the Great and the talking trees, which revealed his fate, is cited as an example of esoteric knowledge. Alchemy is described as a threefold art, symbolizing the divine, human, and elemental worlds. It's the science of multiplication and growth, not creating something from nothing, but increasing and improving what already exists. God is seen as the spiritual seed in the material universe, which can be tinctured into pure gold through art, regeneration, transmutation. The underlying principle is that what is true in the superior is true in the inferior. The growth of metals from seeds within substance is asserted, with some substances being more receptive for artificial quickening. 7 leading problems occupied alchemists: preparing the philosopher's stone, creating homunculi, preparing the alkahest, universal solvent, palingenesis, restoring plants from ashes, preparing spiritus mundi, extracting quintessence, and preparing aurum potabile, liquid gold. Alchemical symbolism uses mercury, sulfur, and salt as 3 symbolic substances, with azoth as a mysterious fourth life principle. Shamayim, the divine fiery water, is the universal mercury, flowing through Eden and forming 4 main rivers. Elements. The Bible is seen as a book of chemical and alchemical formulae. King Solomon's wives, arts, concubines, sciences, and virgins' unrevealed secrets symbolize the forcing of mystic arts to disclose their hidden parts. A table of analogies relates Father, Son, and Mother to God, man, elements, and chemicals. The great work requires the elements to die, putrefaction, to be born again, regeneration. The red elixir, universal medicine, passes through many colors, symbolizing the peacock's tail, and can explode if over-augmented. The 12 alchemical processes: calcination, congelation, fixation, dissolution, digestion, distillation, sublimation, separation, incineration, fermentation, multiplication, and projection, are linked to zodiacal signs and the 12 degrees of Rosicrucian mysteries. The Song of Solomon is interpreted as an alchemical formula. The philosopher's stone exists in 4 worlds simultaneously, with the human element being crucial for its success. An unknown Leiden philosopher's detailed formula for the universal medicine is provided, including gathering sea salt and dew under specific lunar and wind conditions, and processes of dissolution, coagulation, and augmentation. This medicine is said to strengthen understanding, memory, and reveal hidden knowledge. The hermetic and alchemical figures of Claudius de Dominico Celentano Vallis Novi are introduced as a manuscript illustrating the great work. The manuscript's illustrations are described as showing the color development of alchemical processes from blue gold to black, white, and rose, representing changes in human beings rather than mere gold making. 10 bottles or retorts filled with varicolored substances represent stages of the alchemical process, with symbolic inscriptions hinting at transformations and the ultimate goal of the blood-red elixir and red rose. The dedication declares the author has set forth all operations of the great work, drawing from St. Thomas Aquinas, Raymond Lully, and Arnold of Villanova. The Chemical Marriage. Johann Valentine Andrea is acknowledged as the self-admitted author of The Chemical Marriage, a work believed to be one of the original Rosicrucian manifestos. The story details the experiences of an aged man, presumably Father CRC, invited to a royal wedding, symbolizing the Hermetic marriage. The first day, Christian Rosenkreutz, CRC, receives a mysterious invitation from a glorious winged woman to a royal wedding, symbolizing a spiritual journey. He dreams of being in a dungeon with fettered men, from which a rope is lowered 7 times, pulling up those who cling to it, signifying salvation and purity. CRC is given a golden disc with letters DLS and prepares for the wedding by donning white linen, a red ribbon, and carrying bread, water, and salt. The second day, CRC enters a forest, encountering a tablet describing 4 paths to the king's palace, and unknowingly takes the dangerous southern path. He encounters a white dove attacked by a raven, symbolizing purity and strife. He reaches a gate with the inscription, Procul hinc, procul ait profani, away from here, away, you uninitiated, and receives tokens, SC, SESM, SPN, at successive gates for his water bottle, salt, and coat. At the palace, his ice-gray locks are cut, symbolizing purification, and he is seated at a humble place in the dining hall. Virgo Lucifera announces a weighing ceremony for guests on scales to determine their integrity. CRC and 8 others, feeling unworthy, remain in the hall bound with ropes while others are led away. CRC dreams of men suspended by threads, cut by an aged man, symbolizing judgment and fate. The third day, Virgo Lucifera conducts a weighing ceremony with golden scales, where only a few pass the test, receiving velvet robes and laurel wreaths. CRC withstands all weights, even with 3 men on the opposite end, signifying his integrity. He is bestowed the golden fleece and a flying lion, symbolizing kingship and illumined will. He visits the royal sepulchre, learning more than is extant in all books. At supper, CRC solves Virgo Lucifera's riddle, and a draft of silence is shared. 6 royal persons are beheaded by a Moor, their blood caught in golden goblets and placed in coffins. CRC observes 7 flames, spirits hovering over ships on a lake, gathering on the central tower spire, symbolizing the spirits of the beheaded. The 4th day, CRC visits the royal treasury, finding the triangular sepulchre of Lady Venus. The coffins of the royal persons are buried, and Virgo Lucifera exhorts all to journey to the Tower of Olympus to find medicines for their resurrection. They sail across the lake, passing sirens and nymphs, symbolizing the mystical journey. At the Tower of Olympus, they work in a laboratory, grinding plants and stones, extracting essences. CRC observes 7 flames gathering on the spire of the central tower at midnight, symbolizing spiritual forces. The 5th day, the aged warden of the tower examines their work and assigns ladders, ropes, or wings for ascent to the next floor. CRC chooses a heavy ladder, symbolizing arduous spiritual ascent. On the 2nd floor, Virgo Lucifera dissolves the 6 royal bodies in a fountain by pouring substances prepared from the Moor's head and lamps beneath, reducing them to a liquid state. This liquid is drained into a golden globe, then cut open to reveal a white egg, from which an ugly bird emerges. The bird is fed with the royal blood, changing colors and disposition. On the 5th floor, the bird is bathed in white powder, losing its feathers, leaving a blue stone sediment. The 6th day, on the 6th floor, the bird drinks from a fountain of white serpent's blood and is decapitated, its body burned to ashes. CRC and 3 companions are excluded from the 7th room but are chosen for a greater work on the 8th floor. Here, the bird's ashes are mixed with water, molded into 2 miniature human forms, homunculi, which are fed with the bird's blood until they grow to normal size. Through a trumpet, a ray of light soul enters each body 3 times, ensouling them. The young king and queen awaken, symbolizing forces of intelligence and love. The 7th day, the wedding guests become Knights of the Golden Stone, receiving a gold medal with cryptic inscriptions. They return to the king's palace in 12 ships with zodiacal flags. CRC realizes he must become the porter of the gate as punishment for having beheld Lady Venus, symbolizing his philosophical responsibility. The Knights subscribe to 5 articles of conduct, emphasizing service to God and nature, purity, aiding the needy, not seeking worldly dignity, and accepting God's decree for their lifespan. The chemical marriage, as an alchemical marriage, conceals a secret system of spiritual culture for coordinating human and social organisms. Society's 3 murderous agencies, church, state, mob, destroy truth, paralleling Hiram Abiff's murder. The 3 kings are man's threefold spirit, and the executioner is the mind. The resurrected king and queen represent intelligence and love guiding society, with the bridegroom as reality and the bride as the regenerated being. The Knight of the Golden Stone achieves a divine philosophic diamond. The ascent through the Tower of Olympus floors parallels planetary influences and release from them: Bacon, Shakespeare, and the Rosicrucians. The Bacon-Shakespeare-Rosicrucian controversy is introduced, with WFCC Wigston calling Shakespeare Phantom Captain Shakespeare the Rosicrucian Mask. Arguments against William Shakespeare's authorship include his lack of education, illiteracy of his family, lack of travel, and absence of literary manuscripts or mention of books in his will. His apparent involvement in mundane business and petty lawsuits also raises doubts. Sir Francis Bacon is presented as a Rosicrucian initiate, capable of writing the plays due to his vast knowledge, legal and courtly experience, and travels. He is believed to have edited the King James Bible. Cryptographic proofs are offered, such as Bacon's cipher number 33 appearing frequently, acrostic signatures, mispaginations in folios and quartos, and specific head and tail pieces. The light and dark shaded A and the hog, a play on Bacon's name, are cited as recurring signatures. Watermarks also conveyed cryptographic references. The Masonic order is considered a direct outgrowth of secret societies, with Freemasonry permeated by ancient symbolism. Bacon is seen as a focal point between an invisible institution and the world, perpetuating lost wisdom through Freemasonry symbols and literature ciphers. The persistent effort to prevent the unraveling of the Baconian mystery is noted. The philosophic death, where initiates fake their deaths and change identity, is suggested for Bacon. Classical mythology is suggested as a key to the Baconian riddle, with Bacon as the philosophical Hercules, the spear shaker, Shakespeare. Sir Walter Raleigh is also presented as a figure potentially linked to these secret societies, with his history of the world containing Rosicrucian and Masonic symbols. The cryptogram as a factor in symbolic philosophy. The indispensable role of cryptograms in literature and philosophy is highlighted, suggesting that deciphering them could reveal much unsuspected wisdom. Ciphers are hidden in watermarks, pagination, initial letters, mathematical equations, and seemingly ambiguous statements. Freemasonic research is encouraged to explore these to bridge historical gaps. Symbolism is defined as the language of nature, concealing sacred truths from the uninitiated while revealing them to the qualified. Secret or hermetic alphabets were invented for sacred sciences. Cryptic systems were developed to conceal both the message and the cryptogram, widely used in medieval Europe due to religious intolerance. Roger Bacon's cellular theory discovery concealed in a cipher is cited. 7 general types of ciphers are outlined. The literal cipher, most famously, Sir Francis Bacon's biliteral cipher, using 2 styles of type with minute differences, requiring 5 letters to conceal 1. An example of deciphering a sentence using this cipher is provided. Other literal ciphers involve letter substitution or inserting unimportant words. Acrostic signatures are also discussed. The pictorial cipher, pictures or drawings with hidden meanings, common in Egyptian symbolism and alchemical diagrams. Technical forms conceal words or letters in physical details like stone counts or shading lines. The achromatic cipher, parables and allegories found in religious and philosophical writings, e.g., Old and New Testaments, Plato, Homer, are unique in that their meaning is not affected by translation. They are susceptible to multiple interpretations, with the 7th highest being complete. Creation myths and deities are seen as achromatic cryptograms. The numerical cipher, numbers substituted for letters, words, or thoughts, requiring tables of correspondence. Old Testament numerical cryptograms are complex, and Bacon's cipher number 33 is noted. Mispaginations in books also conceal secrets. The musical cipher, musical notes substituted for letters, allowing musicians to converse secretly, with compositions potentially containing hidden messages. Bacon's musical compositions are suggested as possible sources. The arbitrary cipher, substituting hieroglyphic figures for letters, easily decoded by tables of recurrence. The frequency of letters in a language aids in decipherment. The code cipher, modern systems like Morse code or business codes using periods, commas, and semicolons as dots and dashes. Miscellaneous systems of secret writing and the use of art and sciences terminology by medieval mystics to conceal human soul secrets are also mentioned. Freemasonic symbolism. Early Masonic manuscripts claim the craft existed before the deluge, with members building the Tower of Babel. A Masonic constitution attributes the origin of crafts to Lamech's children, Jabal, Jubal, Tubal-Cain, Nama, who inscribed sciences on 2 pillars to preserve them from flood or fire. 1 pillar was supposedly found by Hermes. Josephus's account of Seth erecting pillars to preserve science is also cited. Enoch, the initiator, constructed an underground temple of 9 vaults with a golden tablet bearing God's name, epitomizing the 9 spheres of ancient mysteries. King Henry Vy's manuscript on masonry in England traces its origin to Peter Gower, Pythagoras, who traveled for knowledge in Egypt, Syria, and Phoenicia, establishing a lodge at Groton Crotona. The vow of secrecy, as practiced by initiates like Anaxarchus who bit out his tongue, is emphasized. Masonry is presented as carrying arts and sciences from the East to Western nations. The 7 liberal arts and sciences are conspicuous in Freemasonry, teaching grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, preparing Masons to cope with problems. The Dionysiac architects, a fraternity of Bacchus Dionysos cult initiates, were custodians of secret architectonic knowledge, designing and erecting public buildings. Their strict secrecy left fragmentary records. They spread throughout Asia Minor, Egypt, India, and Europe, influencing early Christian abbeys and cathedrals with their marks and symbols. Vitruvius, a Dionysiac architect, defined the principle of symmetry from human body proportions applied to temple design. The checkerboard floor of Masonic lodges is the old tracing board of Dionysiac architects. Their speculative philosophic code viewed human society as a rough and untrued ashlar to be perfected. Solomon, whose name Sol-Amon symbolizes light, glory, and truth, is the personification of universal wisdom. The Temple of Solomon is seen as three symbolic temples: the grand house of the universe with the sun as king, the human body, microcosm, and the solar house, invisible structure. The wedding garment. Hiram Abiff is the master workman who casts the soul from fiery substance into the physical body, molten sea. The temple is built by three master masons: wisdom, love, service, and when perfect, the Spirit of God dwells within. The loss of the true esoteric key to Masonic secrets is noted. Talmudic legends portray Solomon as an initiate, alchemist, and necromancer, controlling daemons for wisdom. The mysteries of Islam, guarded by dervishes, are discussed with the Axis Kukandibi as the highest holy man. Freemasonry's symbols and rituals are its priceless heritage from ancient mystery schools, making it a worldwide university, teaching liberal arts and sciences of the soul. Albert Pike emphasizes the ancientness of Masonry symbols and doctrines, preceding even living religions, and seeing its true greatness in its symbolism. Mystic Christianity. The true story of Jesus' life is presented as concealed within the mysteries preserved by secret societies like the Knights Templars, Druzes, Nazarenes, and Essenes. St. Irenaeus' statement that Jesus lived to old age contradicts the popular belief of his crucifixion at 33, suggesting purposeful alteration of gospel narratives to fit the pattern of Savior gods. Justin Martyr's admission of similarities between Christianity and pagan faiths is highlighted. The possibility of multiple religious teachers named Jesus is suggested. The Essenes, described by Josephus as pious and ascetic, are believed to have been custodians of ancient knowledge and initiators of Jesus. Their communities and practices were similar to Eastern holy men, and their symbols included builders' tools. The story of Joseph, Mary, and the miraculous budding rod is recounted as an Essene initiation allegory. The child Christ in apocryphal books is depicted as mischievous, suggesting a later fabrication to inspire fear. Jesus is seen as an initiate who, after fulfilling ascetic practices, achieved christening, reunion with his spiritual source, and taught the lost secret teaching. His parables are seen as allegories, with Voltaire suggesting Plato's influence on the Christos mystery. The Christos, or divine man in man, represents latent divinity and man's real hope of salvation through at one ment with this self. The story of Jesus is interpreted as a secret initiatory ritual from early Christian and pagan mysteries. The Arthurian cycle and the legend of the Holy Grail are explored as perpetuations of the Christos mystery. Joseph of Arimathea is described as the custodian of the Holy Grail, ever-flowing cup and bleeding spear, who brought it to Britain, founding Glastonbury Abbey. The Grail, an ancient pagan nature myth, symbolizes the bounty of harvest and the inexhaustible fountain of natural resource, not solely a Christian emblem. Merlin, the magician, is linked to the philosophical son of the serpent or dragon, symbolizing wisdom. Arthur's Round Table and its knights are seen as representing the universe, zodiac, and hours of the day, with the siege perilous for the perfect man. Arthur, as Grand Master, represents the sun and his kingdom, the universe. The Rosicrucians are believed to have possessed the true secret of the Arthurian cycle and Grail legend, the cross and the crucifixion. A legend from Aurea Legenda traces the origin of the cross from 3 seeds of the tree of life placed in Adam's mouth, growing into a tree taken by Noah into the ark, and later used by Moses and Solomon. Ultimately, the tree was cut into a cross on which Jesus was crucified at Calvary, where Adam's skull was buried. The cross's presence as a religious symbol in pre-Christian and non-Christian cultures is emphasized, being almost universal. Its use by American Indians, Japanese, Chinese, Pythagoreans, and in Buddhist and other ancient arts is noted. 3 distinct forms of the cross are described. The Tau Tav resembles the letter T, originating from Egyptian bull ram horns or the Druid god Hu. It was inscribed on Mithraic initiates' foreheads and used by Kabbalists to represent heaven and the Tetractys. The Crux Ansata, a Tau cross surmounted by a circle or oval, the key to the mysteries of antiquity, symbolizing life and rejuvenation, seen in Egyptian and Central American art. The Roman or Greek cross, the familiar form associated with Jesus' crucifixion, though its exact shape is debated. The cross's twofold Christian significance, Redeemer's death and humility, is noted. Astronomically, it symbolized equinoxes and solstices. The 4 arms of the cross represent the 4 elements, with Kabbalistic creatures at each end. The 4 letters on Christ's cross, Inrai, are linked to Hebrew words for the 4 elements. The cross, formed by unfolding a cube, symbolizes the earth. The material of the cross also held symbolic meaning: gold for illumination, wood for aspiration. The human body is also seen as a cross, with its divisions, bones, muscles, nerves, arteries, contributing to its symbolism. Man's 4 vehicles, physical, vital, emotional, mental, also relate to the cross. The crucifixion is presented as a cosmic allegory, with saviors dying for humanity's sins, traceable to sun worship and the sun's annual death and resurrection. Pagan mysteries included a symbolic crucifixion of the candidate. Prominent crucified saviors include Prometheus, Adonis, Mithras, and Krishna. The Central American god Quetzalcoatl is depicted crucified on a cross. The 3 nails of the Passion are highly symbolic, with legends surrounding their number and use. They are linked to secret centers of force in the hands and feet. Dr. Franz Hartmann interprets the crucifixion mystically: the cross as terrestrial life, the crown of thorns as soul suffering and spirit's victory, the naked body as renunciation of desires, and the nails as surrender of self-will. The mystery of the apocalypse. Ephesus, a center of mystery religion, is linked to early Christian myths, with St. John the Divine's tomb believed to be there. The Apocalypse, attributed to St. John, is deemed the most important but least understood Gnostic Christian writing, its authorship disputed since the 2nd century. Theories about its origin include a pagan writing of Eleusinian or Phrygian mysteries, a reconciliation of early Christian and pagan philosophies, or an attempt to satirize Christianity by showing its pagan roots. The Alpha and Omega in the 1st chapter represent humanity's evolutionary growth, past, present, and future. His features are a composite of the 7 sacred planets, and the flaming sword from his mouth is the creative fiat. The 7 churches, which are in Asia, are analogous to the rungs of a Mithraic ladder or the chakras along the human spine. The throne of God, surrounded by 24 elders, Persian genii, divisions of time, and the Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, Ares, purified candidate, are described. The Lamb replacing the crucified man as a symbol of Christ is noted. The 4 horsemen of the Apocalypse signify 4 main divisions of human life: birth, youth, maturity, death, or the 4 yugas, ages of the world. The 7th seal breaking leads to 7 angels sounding trumpets, causing catastrophes. The star wormwood falling from heaven signifies the profanation of ancient secret doctrine. The woman clothed with the sun, Virgo Isis, being attacked by the great dragon Typhon, relates to the destruction of Ragnarok and the fall of angels. The great beast rising from the sea, Cetus Demiurgus, is an astronomical symbol of the creator of the world. The number of the beast, 666, is an example of Kabbalism, referring to the lower mind, and contrasting with Jesus' numerical value, 888. Armageddon represents the final struggle between flesh and spirit, and the judgment signifies the weighing of the soul. The New Jerusalem, a perfect cube, symbolizes the regenerated and perfected world, with its 12 gates representing zodiacal signs. The River of Life and the Tree of Life are also described as symbols of spiritual nourishment and eternal wisdom. The faith of Islam. Muhammad, prophet of Islam, is presented amidst accusations of blasphemy and ridiculous fables. His birth was accompanied by celestial signs and the extinguishing of Zoroaster's sacred fire. The angel Gabriel cleansed his heart of original sin. Muhammad's travels and learning from Nestorian Christians and Bedouins are noted. His marriage to Khadija elevated his social position. His public mission began after receiving revelations from Gabriel in a cave on Mount Hira. His ecstatic swoons during dictation of the Quran are mentioned. Early converts attest to his sincerity. The Hegira flight to Medina marks the beginning of Islamic chronology. Muhammad's triumphant return to Mecca and his cleansing of the Kaaba are recounted. His valedictory pilgrimage emphasized his doctrines. His death, possibly due to poison, saw him suffering but maintaining faith. Muhammad's character is defended against charges of cruelty and licentiousness, with emphasis on his frugality, hard work, and humility. His polygamy is compared to biblical figures, and his teachings placed women on equal footing with men in attaining salvation through individual merit. The Quran's inconsistencies are attributed to later interpolations and misunderstandings, with the genuine portions reflecting the Prophet's true doctrines. Muhammad's contact with ancient mystery teachings through the Great School, Nestorian monks, a holy man, or a decadent Arabian school is speculated upon. Islamic symbolism emphasizes the feminine principle, with Friday sacred to Venus and green as the Prophet's color. The Kaaba's black stone is seen as a talisman with a figure of Venus, pointing to its pagan origins. Islamic scientific and philosophical contributions, particularly in chemistry, mathematics, and optics, are acknowledged as superior during Europe's Dark Ages. The rebirth of wisdom, Phoenix, every 600 years, is hinted at, linking Pythagoras, Jesus, Muhammad, and Genghis Khan. American Indian symbolism. The North American Indian is described as a symbolist, mystic, and philosopher deeply connected to cosmic agencies. Their folklore is rich with superphysical beings inhabiting forests, rivers, and skies, including lake-dwelling tribes, nocturnal earth roamers, and bat Indians. Their philosophy of elemental creatures is linked to intimate contact with nature's wonders. The earth is seen as an intermediate plane between heaven and a terrifying subterranean world, divided into strata reflecting Greek mysteries. The number 4 holds sanctity, possibly due to the Great Spirit creating the universe in a square frame. Narratives of heroes penetrating the realms of the dead confirm the presence of mystery cults. Initiates gained the ability to exit their physical bodies at will, leading to allegories of adventures in the Indian Shadowland. The sacred calumet, peace pipe, is the Indian's altar, its smoke an offering to heaven, with specific rituals of blowing smoke towards zenith, ground, and sun as thanks to the Great Spirit, earth, and sun. The red stone for the calumet came from a sacred quarry where the Great Spirit instituted the ceremony. The flying serpent symbolizes the Atlantean initiate, and the seven-headed snake represents the 7 Atlantean islands and prehistoric esoteric schools. The Serpent Mound in Ohio further supports the presence of secret doctrine in the Americas. Reincarnation and transmigration beliefs are prevalent among American Indians and Eskimos. The distinction between ghost and soul and the concept of group elder souls are also known to them. Guardian spirits and totems protect clans and tribes, appearing to young men during fasts. Hiawatha, the hero, is described as an initiate who united the Iroquois nations into the League of the Five Nations, anticipating a League of Nations. He faced opposition from shamans who used magic against him. The Popol Vuh, the sacred book of the Quiches, sets forth initiatory rituals, establishing ancient mystery schools on the American continent. Its title has various translations, including the Senate Book and the Book of the Azure Veil. Later Central South American civilizations were dominated by black arts, with sorcerers using magnetized mirrors and human sacrifice, representing remnants of Atlantean perversion. The mysteries of Xibalba, subterranean place of initiation, are recounted through the adventures of Hunhun Apu and Vukub Hunhun Apu and their twin sons Hunahpu and Exbalanque. The ordeals of Xibalba, House of Shadows, House of Spears, House of Cold, House of Tigers, House of Fire, House of Bats are described, where the youths face various challenges and dangers, symbolizing soul journeys. Hunahpu's beheading by Kamazot's god of bats, and subsequent restoration to life through magic, followed by their triumph over the princes of Xibalba, represent the ascension of spiritual consciousness. Le Plongeon connects these initiations to Enoch's visions and the Eleusinian and Egyptian mysteries. Dr. Guthrie relates the Xibalbian trials to zodiacal signs. The elastic ball is linked to the pineal gland, and Hunahpu and Exbalanque to dual electric currents along the spinal column. The black divining stone in the temple of Gucumat's, Quetzalcoatl, is likened to the Kaaba in Islam. The massive pyramids and monoliths of Central America are seen as feet of gods, shrouded in magic mantles of invisibility. The mysteries and their emissaries. The survival of divine knowledge from pagan priestcrafts after temple destruction is questioned, and its accessibility to mankind is explored. Albert Pike and other authorities attest to the excellence of doctrines from the mysteries, which provided solutions to cultural, intellectual, moral, and social problems. The initiates of mystery schools form a golden chain of supermen and superwomen, founders of sciences, philosophies, and arts. The persecution faced by initiate teachers like Pythagoras, Hypatia, and Giordano Bruno is highlighted. 3 prominent figures are chosen for detailed consideration. Hypatia, the most eminent woman philosopher, a central figure in the Alexandrian school of Neoplatonism, renowned for her learning and charm. She proved the pagan origin of Christianity and exposed its alleged miracles. Cyril, Bishop of Alexandria, is implicated in her tragic murder in a D45 by a fanatical mob. The Comte di Cagliostro, a mysterious figure branded as an impostor and charlatan whose memoirs describe his Arabian upbringing under Altotas. Doubts about his true identity, Giuseppe Balsamo, are raised. He was acquitted in the Queen's Necklace affair but was persecuted by the Inquisition for founding a Masonic lodge in Rome. Cagliostro created an Egyptian rite admitting women and possessed powers of prophecy, foretelling the French Revolution. He is considered a mysterious agent of the Knights Templars and a Rosicrucian initiate. The Comte de Saint-Germain, the most baffling personality of history, a scholar, linguist, chemist, artist, and musician with uncanny knowledge of the past and prophetic abilities. He worked as a secret agent for European governments, appearing under various names. His physical attributes included a youthful appearance and a fondness for diamonds. He practiced Eastern meditation and concentration and is believed to have been a highly advanced adept, possibly the actual head of the Rosicrucian order. He and Sir Francis Bacon are considered the two greatest emissaries of the Secret Brotherhood. Episodes from American history. The influence of European secret societies in the founding of the United States is discussed. Two incidents are cited. Designing the colonial flag of 1775, a mysterious professor, seemingly ageless and possessing vast knowledge, actively participated in designing the flag, his suggestions being immediately accepted by George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, both Masons. The professor then vanished without a trace. The signing of the Declaration of Independence, a fierce-voiced stranger unknown to those present, appeared in the State House, delivering an impassioned speech that spurred the signers. He then disappeared, his identity never established. These episodes suggest the continued presence of divine wisdom guiding humanity through its chosen emissaries. Conclusion. The conclusion reiterates the importance of philosophy as the key to understanding life and overcoming ignorance. The story of Alexander the Great and Aristotle highlights how true intellectual achievement surpasses worldly conquest. Philosophy is presented as indispensable for human dignity and living a meaningful life, offering liberation from materialistic illusions and the cycle of birth and death. Modern civilization is criticized for its materialism, commercialism, and self-inflicted agony. Science and religion are seen as becoming materialistic, losing their true purpose. The school of the worldly wise men is critiqued for its cynical view of mystics, saints, and God, and its focus on superficial knowledge. The fundamental purpose of ancient philosophy was to accelerate rational development and achieve spiritual illumination, representing the great work and the philosopher's stone. The importance of living a philosophic life fully devoted to rationality is emphasized. The priceless heritage of arcane lore, preserved by secret brotherhoods of the wise, is highlighted as the world's only hope. The destruction of knowledge through war is lamented, and the need to preserve fundamental and essential truths for future generations is stressed. Simple ignorance, lack of knowledge, leads to growth, while complex ignorance, ignorance of ignorance, is dangerous as it declares physical life as the ultimate reality. Philosophy reveals man's kinship with the All, transforming him from a taxpayer on a whirling atom to a citizen of cosmos. The human mind, though limited, can grasp immensities through its spiritual power. The mysteries, as sacred colleges of wisdom, reveal a greater, more glorious universe, the true home of spiritual man. They provide a path to conscious immortality, freeing the soul from habit and perversion. The book concludes with an invitation to embrace the philosophic life, emphasizing that only transcendental philosophy knows the path to being born well, to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure be born again. Thanks for exploring the mysteries with us at Occult Mysticism. If the secret teachings of all ages sparked your curiosity, drop your thoughts in the comments and share this video with fellow seekers. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected with our esoteric journey. Until next time, keep unveiling the hidden truths of the universe.